Some people ask me why I felt maybe like a little suicidal while I was living like a squirrel in winter in the woods. And it's very hard to answer because I'm not actually suicidal. Yeah, I want to live and I'm afraid I'm going to die. That's the real problem. It's 0 degrees. I mean, I'll go over the problem and you picture yourself in this situation and tell me what you would do. And you remember, you're me, so you can't drive, you have a neurological disorder, you're having seizures, you're having a little trouble walking, you can't really talk as well while this neurological disorder is happening. You go down to the shelter. You try to stay at the shelter, they won't let you stay. They tell you you got to get your neurological disorder documented and fully diagnosed before they can let you in. Because if you can't move in the morning or if you can't take a shower, and it's because of something like falls or seizures, you got to get that handled. You go to the doctors, they keep on screwing around and it's going to take years to do that. So, it's 0 degrees. You've tried the shelter. They tell you, sorry, we've told you, you got to do this first. You can't stay here. You say, oh, shit. So you're in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's 0 degrees. The shelter tells you, no, you can't spend the night. Not today, not tomorrow, not the third day, not the fourth day. You say, oh, shit. So then the next day, you try to get a job. You go to all these different places. You're falling down. You're shaky. You're not talking well. They tell you your disability disqualifies you from getting a job. You should be on Social Security, everybody's telling you. So you go to Social Security, but you can't get Social Security because your father already claimed a bunch of false disabilities and they're confused. That's going to take a bunch of years. So now you're sitting on a bench. It's 0 degrees still. You've tried jobs, you've tried Social Security, you've tried living in a shelter. You still have to sleep on this bench every night, freezing to death. And you keep on being brought to the emergency room because they say your body temperature drops and they find you dead. That night, a police officer tells you you have to keep it moving, keep it moving. You're not allowed to stay on the bench, you're not allowed to stay near heaters, you got to keep it moving, you got to keep it moving. This police officer says he's going to arrest you if you don't keep it moving. So the only place you can sleep is in a bush. So the night comes, one night comes, you've now been dealing with this, and it's 0 degrees it drops to zero. It's bedtime. You've now walked for 3 days straight. You can't keep in circles anymore through downtown. There's no way to keep moving so you don't get arrested. What do? You can't use a shelter. You can't work. You can't collect Social Security. You've stayed on all the couches that people have asked you to stay on. You've tried every single person you can stay with. You've exhausted everything. What do you do when you're freezing to death in that bush? Where do you go? Do you try Dunkin' Donuts? Nope. Dunkin' Donuts says spend money. And even when you spend money, you only get 15 minutes for every cup of coffee you buy. For everything you buy, you only get 15 minutes. If you spend 20 bucks, you get 15 minutes. If you spend $3, you get 15 minutes. It doesn't matter. If you don't have a place to go, you get 15 minutes at Dunkin' Donuts. That's it. And they will. They will throw you out and they will have you arrested if you try to push it. I've seen it with many other people who can't understand it because they just spent 20, 30 bucks in the last 2 hours and they're being thrown out by the police. I've seen it by other people. I don't even try it. So tell me, you're about to die. You're freezing to death. You've just had a seizure and woke up in the woods. Where do you go? What do you do? The hospital just released you and told you not to come back, but yet you got injured again and you have nowhere to go. You can't work until you get your disabilities figured out, but you can't get your disabilities figured out because somebody else doesn't want you to. Somebody else wants to cover up a crime. So tell me, how do you survive? How do you stay alive that night? Come on, tell me. Do you break into a building and stay in a hallway? That's illegal. You go straight to jail. Trespassing. Can't break any laws in this math problem. Tell me, how do you stay alive legally? You're not allowed to use a shelter. Dunkin' Donuts won't give you any more time unless you got money and you only get 15 minutes per purchase. You can't work, you can't collect Social Security, and there's no friends or buddies or family members that you can stay with. Nope, somebody else lied about you way too much for that. Somebody told stories about you after story after. They took your swimming medal away and called you a liar and a thief, and they made up more and more and more. So don't expect any of that from your family, and your friends always want you there. But you can't live with your friends forever. So tonight you're on your own. Come on. How do you not freeze to death? Come on. Tell me, what's your solution? It's just you in the middle of the woods. It's 0 degrees. It's 9, 10 o'clock at night. You gotta spend the night. You can't use any other people. You're not allowed to cheat and use another person. You're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to collect Social Security. You're not allowed to use a shelter due to your disability. You can't drive. You can't have a car. You can't have a truck. Tell me. Well, you could cut yourself, go to the hospital, then they'll do an evaluation that will keep you warm for 30 days or so. And honestly, if you're in the woods, if you kill yourself, you won't feel the slow, painful death. So you won't slowly freeze to death. So you actually do prevent your slow freezing to death, because you'll be dead before you're frozen to death. You'll be dead. So you could try to do a suicide attempt in some public area, and then if somebody finds you, you get to live for another 30 days, and if you die, then you don't gotta freeze to death. But that's only a temporary solution and not a good one. But come on, without utilizing, I mean, my family knew I had frostbite. I had to have my toes amputated. Literally, they told me if I went back out that door, back out, walking around in circles in the ice cold, the next visit would have been an amputation. My family knew this was going on. They knew all about it. They knew I was disabled during childhood as well. When I was age 7, doctors were telling my mother and father something was wrong with me, but my mother and father decided they just wanted to put me in ballet and move me around the country instead of looking into it. So, it's a very tough math problem. I wasn't really suicidal, I wanted to live. But I'm also gonna die tonight. And I know if I commit suicide, I'll either have a quicker death, or for some miracle, I'll be alive for 30 days instead of just 2 days. So it does keep me alive, believe it or not, either way. I either am dead and my suffering is over, or my life has been saved for not only the night, but the next couple nights. So as far as that, I was never really suicidal except for when my mother was drugging the shit out of me with downers and awful things. My mother was really bad with pills. She was sneaking pills, over the counter pills, all different types. I did get suicidal thoughts a couple times at nighttime after taking all those pills during childhood, absolutely. My mother also liked to say everything was suicide. Sucking on my skin was suicide, jumping in a pool and catching the back of my foot was suicide, me bumping in the furniture all the time was suicide. My mother called everything suicide. So you got to keep that in mind too. On my record, my mother had suicide, suicide, suicide. He's sucking his skin, he's suicidal. He jumped in a pool and caught the back of his foot, he's suicidal. He's bumping in the furniture for the total of age 7 to 31. He's suicidal. Oh, yeah, he's bumping into that furniture because he's suicidal, my mother says. She was a complete fucking lunatic, and now I have to suffer because my father wants to hide his dirty little secret about his lunatic second wife. It's really bad. It's really bad. I actually had to do that math problem I just described. I spent 4 years living like a squirrel in the woods, trying to jump from shelter to shelter as they disqualify me because I'm disabled and my father wants to hide my real disability all during childhood because it has to do with the overdose that my mother's responsible for, and my mother wants to lie to my father and he's eating it all up. He loves taking my mother's my mother will take a shit and my father and her will shear the shovel, bring it over to their 7-year-old's head, dump the shit onto their 7-year-old head, and then go to everybody and go, ha ha ha, look at the shithead, ha ha ha, look at the shithead. That's the metaphor for their behavior. It's very clear. It's ridiculous. It's almost as bad as somebody outside just now saying they're suicidal. I think that's a landlord's trick. It's a very good one. He sends maintenance out there to scream and pretend to be me, moaning like they're hurt and screaming that they're suicidal. Then everybody in the building hears it, but nobody sees who it is. Then that same person goes inside, makes a complaint that he just saw so and so, me, making that noise. Then the police do an investigation. They get 3 people saying they heard it, and one person said they saw me, and I'm over there going, all I did is I heard somebody too, and I have no idea what's going on. So it was a pretty good trick they just pulled today. They just sent the maintenance outside to pretend to be me, screaming that I'm suicidal outside, and then they're making a false police report. Luckily, I have Officer Miller's number. I recorded it, and I made a police report myself, straight up to Officer Miller, telling them that you got maintenance people screaming out there like lunatics. I don't like this. I don't like this one bit. I don't like these people lying and trying to do all these crimes. It's really bad. There's no reason to be making up all these stories all the time about me. There's no reason for it other than people want to be selfish. They really do. And my father put a target on my back, so it's real easy. I'm talking on the phone about my doctors, how my mother called me suicidal, and if somebody overhears that on the other side of the door while they're walking by, they can use that against me thanks to my mother and father. And that's probably what happened. I've been talking about my mother and father, some of the things that they diagnosed me with, how they said that I was suicidal when I bumped into furniture and stuff. If somebody, like one of the maintenance, was working next door and heard that in the hallway, they very well could have worked with the landlord and said, this is what we're going to do. This is fucked up shit. It's not the first one. The landlord's also gone to people's tenants' doors. Literally, as soon as the door opens, grab the guy, beat him up. No cameras. I have cameras here, so not me. This was somebody else. It's happened to me too, but this is a little different. Then the police will get called, and the landlord will say that he got punched, and then file paperwork for a fight. When really, the tenant just got a beating on the ground, and literally the landlord never even got a mark. There's a lot of these games. Like, for instance, he'll keep no lights on in the hallway, but they'll tell him there's an inspection coming for water or light bulbs, and then he'll tell his maintenance to put in a light bulb the day before inspection. They'll do the inspection, and a week after inspection, they'll take them back out or they'll die. So there's a lot of these games going on. He has so many motherfucking games. He plays the 84-year-old in my room. I mean, he got an 84-year-old with a half a working heart and colostomy bag to do his landscaping for free by using intimidation. He came over here screaming that he was going to punch us and he was going to evict both of us, and he was saying this straight to David. And David went outside because he was scared and went out on a big steep hill that literally, if he just tried to stand up, he would have broke his neck. Doing all this landlord's landscaping out of fear. So these games are literally mobster intimidation games. They're the same shit you saw from the mob. You got one landlord, and he's giving money to three different or a couple people who are his goons. And they get to live in the buildings, and they just talk on the phones, and they just try to get their way through any means possible. They try to hide the mold. They try to, like the maintenance isn't doing any work, really. When I had some mold growing under my sink when I first moved in and asked them to scrape it up or get rid of it, they said, I would get sick. I'm not doing that. And I complained and complained. Nothing happened. You got shit like that going on all the time. You got all these motherfucking lying games. People like to pull tricks. But you know what my trick is? I play honest. I follow Jesus. I never lie. And if liars do get me hurt or killed, I come for their testicles. Yes. If you get me hurt or killed or do some serious harm because you want to lie and tell stories, and I get hurt or put in the prison for something I did not do, or if you go into a courthouse and you make up a bunch of stories about me that you know isn't true, just like, like the person, it clearly knows they're not true, they clearly know they're just making up shit, but they want to, like people purposely lying. When you get that type of shit, all I can do is tell the truth. The truth will set you free, but not always. So if it doesn't, that's when I come for your testicles. I wait, I track you down, I come with some other people, and I cut your testicles off. Or, much, much worse. There's a lot of other ways. But I'm not fucking around with these people anymore. I might follow Jesus, but I've had my limit on some stuff. And I'm about to go out, and I've done so much good in my lifetime. I've helped people who are pregnant, prostitutes get off prostitution, addicts get sober. I've helped elderly people, disabled children. I've done enough good. I've literally taken abuse after abuse from the system. Many people. I've even given help to people that hurt me. I've even given forgiveness to people that were trying to rob me. There's so much I've done that I'm not afraid to cut off a guy's testicles one time. I'm pretty sure God will be like, well, yeah, Zach, you got to pay for that one, but we all got our crosses to bear. You know what I mean? You stole your father's coins during childhood, and then you cut somebody's testicles off. It's not a large list. It's a very small list. Plus, your mother made up stories about you being doing all these bad fake things, and you took that like a man. You let your mother totally get you drugged, held down. Your mother had you get naked in front of strangers. And you took that like a man. You didn't lie, you didn't steal, you didn't nothing. Even when your mother was telling you that you were a liar and a thief, you still wanted to be honest. Still to this day, you're afraid to tell any lie because people are totally dishonest just in general. So if I say one untrue thing, like somebody once said, I should just say my father and mother don't exist. I should just say I was never adopted and they are dead. So that would be a lie, and then people wouldn't trust me. They wouldn't think I was honest. So I can't say anything that isn't true. I can tell somebody I'm making up an analogy and then tell them the analogy and then explain what the analogy is based on, the true facts. I can give somebody a movie I saw. I can do all that, but I can't purposely try to fool anybody. I can't give people false information while I know it's false or anything like that. I never will. That was never, ever something I did in my entire life. But my mother, absolutely. She loves spinning lies about me. There's so many of them. And no matter how many times I told my father or anybody, she's lying about me, she's making this up in her head. I won that swimming medal in the orphanage. She's snatching it away from me. Can I please have my swimming medal back? No, I did not write my old last name on the swimming medal. I won it in the orphanage, and that was my fucking name. That's why the staff put it on the medal. Because that was my fucking name. My name is on the medal, so nobody will steal it from me. No other kids would take it from me. I didn't write it on that. A staff member wrote it on that because I treaded water better than the other kids. I won a swimming medal. Okay, that's simple. Was I lying about all these things going up to age 31? No. But does my mother and father spread it around and make up more and more and more and more and more and more stories? Absolutely. Did they make more and more and more mistakes? Absolutely. Did they ever own those mistakes? No. Did I forgive them for those mistakes? Yes. Do they continue to make those same mistakes? Yes. Do I forgive them for those mistakes? Yes. Am I going to allow them to continue to try to kill me? No. Do I forgive them for their future mistake of trying to kill me? No. Do they have to handle this? Yes. Do they get to finish me off? No. Am I going to crawl into a hole and keep the dirty little secret? No. Do I have forgiveness ready for them? Yes. Do they want to handle this, or would they rather me die? They don't want to handle this. No. Do they want me to die and go into a hole keeping their secret? Yes. Is there proof out there of everything I'm speaking about? Of course there is. Yes. Are there witnesses? Of course there are. Yes. Did people see this my whole life? Of course they did. Yes. Did I get better or worse with medication? I got better with some and worse with others. Did giving me 8 medications help? No. Did giving me benzos help? Yes. Did giving me Ritalin help? Yes. Did all the rest help? No. Did my mother make up stories to get me on medicine? Yes. Did she make up stories about me lying? Yes. Was my mother lying to my father? Yes. Is my father okay with his wife lying to him? Yes. Would my father believe anything his wife told him? Yes. Would my father be willing to hurt me? Yes. Would my father be willing to sacrifice a part of my body for money? Yes. Would my father be willing to sacrifice a part of me to make his wife happy? Yes. Would my father go along with something because he just doesn't remember anything and he'd rather his son get hurt than take any responsibility for his actions? Yes. Would my father call my doctors because he's an emergency contact, and instead of getting information like he's supposed to from them, giving them information that's false, like calling things fantasies or mental illnesses? Yes. Do people make mistakes? Yes. Are people sometimes evil, and do they lie? Yes. Do I hear people lying about me? Yes. How do I know these things are lies? Well, for instance, I just heard a guy outside screaming that he was suicidal. I'm not even kidding. Somebody was just outside my building screaming that. Now, I'm in the middle of an eviction and the landlord just got arrested, and he has a bunch of goons on call that are in this building, and it sounded like one of them. So what happens if one of them yells outside like that and then claims that they saw me yelling like that, and then all the neighbors heard somebody but they didn't see it? What would happen? Well, he made up a lie and a story about me, and then they would get a report down, and then they would ask me about it. I wouldn't know about it. I would just know somebody was screaming outside. So what did I do? I made out a report, told them everything that was going on, and I'm going to keep reporting this. But do people do stuff like that? Yes. Did my mother do stuff like that? Yes. Did doctors hear about my actual physical illnesses during childhood? Yes. Did my father and mother hear that maybe their son lost his vision and lost some movement of his coordination, and maybe there was something wrong with his nervous system or body at the age of 7 from a combination of medications that my mother admitted to giving me, and she wanted to call it an allergy attack even though no doctors were allowed to diagnose me about it yet? My mother just wanted to guess, and she said that she worked as a nurse, a long time ago. So she knows everything. She can be a doctor. She knows everything. She knows everything about medical care. She knows that she can give a child extra medication all she wants and nothing will happen. She can poison a child with extra lots of medication, give them overdoses, and that child will be fine. You can give a child a full bottle of Epicac and that child will be fine, she says. So my mother's saying all these crazy ass things. And then when we go to the doctors, what does she call it? Oh, I administered medications and it was just an allergy attack to the combos of medications. Then she changes her story later and goes to, oh, it's nothing, I don't remember it, I don't remember it, I don't remember it, stop talking about that, I don't remember it. Meanwhile, teachers are concerned. They're telling me they see a change in my movements of my body. They're asking me if anything's going on at home because it looks like my body is different. You got physical therapy, speech therapy, you got doctors concerned. But what puts a hold to that? Why did I never get help then, you might be thinking? Well, my mother had money at her disposal, so she pulled the oldest trick in the book. She stopped any doctors from seeing me. She stopped any teachers from seeing me. She packed me up and she moved me to Texas. She changed all the medical records. She made sure to leave certain medical records out. She did not want to continue certain things, and she begged doctors in Texas to drug me for made-up mental illnesses, which she was getting aggravated because the doctors weren't really going along with it. They were pretty good in Texas, but then I started talking about my neurological disorder because I started putting on jackets when it was windy, and other kids said it was weird that I would shake and put on jackets when it was warm out. I was putting on like suede jackets when it was warm out. I would shake a little bit. I would be on the ground digging holes while the other kid played. They always used to ask why Zach was on the ground instead of running around as much. But that's because I used to like it sometimes to be on the ground because I used to had more coordination when I was sitting down. So there was a lot going on like that, and I didn't know what to call it or do about it. I knew it had to do with an overdose. So my mother was calling it an allergy attack, so I asked the doctor to look into it. And my mother, once again, heard me say this in front of her, called it an allergy attack, told me basically not to speak about it. In the car, she goes, "Why did you say that?" "Because it happened," I tell her. That's all, because that's what happened. I want to know about it. I want to look into it. That's what happened. That's what the doctor's for. But instead, my mother didn't want me speaking about it, so she cut off all doctors, all teachers, all everything right after I spoke about it, and then put me in a cabin up near New Mexico, where clearly had no physical doctors, had dangers all over the place. We're talking rattlesnakes, giant ant hills. We're talking about black widows under the sink, black bears eating out of the dumpster, and a big African American staff that was only allowed to do night work. He was stealing candy and stuff like that. And then they kept on losing people, so he became day staff. But then he started kind of abusing the kids, but also the staff, kind of the staff. The kids really got abused. I mean, we had an 8-year-old girl get choked out in the shower, naked, until you could only hear her choking. She was trying to scream, but then you would hear her gargle as the arms. And she was so skinny that to get her arms around her throat, you almost had to dislocate her shoulder. Poor girl. That was me, too. He was doing the same thing to me. Anyways, it was very clear that this place was very, very bad because the place wasn't built yet. It wasn't fully staffed, it wasn't fully built, they didn't have a proper teacher, and they really only had a lot of printouts. But a lot of these kids were all from rich, rich, rich families, people that didn't want children, people that weren't attached to their children, and wouldn't mind just dropping them off for 2 years at some place. It's the equivalent of like a prison camp, pretty much. It was supposed to be more like a attachment disorder camp, but it wasn't built yet. The pool wasn't there. The places for the kids to sleep. There just wasn't the facilities. They didn't have the staff. They didn't have the proper teachers. They originally had some woman, and then she quit. Then we had nothing. Then there was some guy at the end that did some kind of lessons once a week with us. It wasn't. There was some printouts and the paperwork that they filled out too, that they had us fill out, were once in a while. And yeah, they did have us fill out some paperwork, but this was very ridiculous. And they even had some women come one week too. And we filled out a lot of paperwork at once, and that was for spelling, spelling and writing. And we spent about a good amount of time, 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for about a month. And that wasn't a teacher, that was only for me. Nobody else got that. I only got that because there wasn't much for me, and I already redid first grade. I've now got reevaluated for a year at Texas. I just started to get my hang of being in a new school in Texas, then they unplanted me there. I'm having a neurological disorder, I'm shaking, I'm having problems moving my body, I'm wearing jackets when it gets even a little windy while everybody else goes, it's hot out. So there's a lot going on with me, and now I'm just thrown up in New Mexico. Anyways, I'm torn out of there, and then I'm brought to Maine. So we got all that type of shit going on. Meanwhile, what is my mother doing? Oh, she's drugging the shit out of her child. If we don't have prescriptions from doctors, she'll go with the over-the-counters. She'll start, punishing me with Epicac. She'll start giving me her own pills to shut me up and make me quiet. There's so many other types of things, like me getting sick on Halloween. Why the fuck am I getting sick every time my mother disagrees with what's going on? My mother can't get her way, so all of a sudden I get sick? What the fuck is that about? Every Halloween, my mother has to get her way, so I get sick? That makes no sense. What the fuck? Why when my mother isn't getting her way, do I get sick? And then my mother gets her way. Well, what the fuck is that about? Well, I'll tell you, my mother was giving me drugs to make me sick every Halloween because she wanted to get her way. She didn't want me going out. Everybody said I could go out. She wasn't getting her way. So right before it's time to go out, she gave me some pills. I would get very sick, and then she'd say, oh, he's sick. See, I told you he can't go out. See, I got my way. God bless her soul. Devil bless her soul, I should say. I did a prayer hoping that she'll get into heaven, but as long as this stuff isn't handled, she can't get in because her damage is still being done. I mean, when I did that forgiveness and asked for her, to be let into heaven, even if she's burning for eternity, that was with this getting fixed. But now with all this, it's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm suffering greatly because of what they did, and they want to continue doing bad. It's not like they want my forgiveness. It's not like they want Jesus' love. It's not like they want to go to heaven. No, they want to get out of trouble on this earth. They want to make sure that nobody knows their dark little secret. They rather have that. And if you're thinking, well, is this just you saying this? No. Hundreds of people asked me about it. Doctors were trying to help me about it at first. Hundreds of people have asked about it. Teachers have complained about it. Teachers have called home about my mother's mental illness. It's very, very obvious. I mean, my mother was throwing away my favorite toys because she was jealous. She would come in and tell me, I would be like, why'd you throw away my McDonald's solid gold Pokemon card? And she would say, well, you liked it too much. You like it more than you like me. You're jealous of my toy, Mom? That's why you're throwing stuff away? What the hell's wrong with my mother? Yeah, so she did this stuff for years, and everybody saw my mother doing this. They saw her hitting me, whacking me, throwing shoes at me when she was upset, drinking heavily, taking my pills. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that my mother was the problem, and that's why I have a neurological disorder. Now, as a child, I'm not. I'm not even close to figuring this out. But now that I'm an adult, it's once when you hear it beginning to end, it makes perfect sense. It's, you know, when you're a child getting a piece at the time, it doesn't, you don't see what's going on. Plus, you don't understand, like you don't know what an overdose is. You don't know what a neurological disorder is. You don't know how parents are supposed to act. You don't know what the laws are. You don't know what's legal and not legal. Like some parents might be like, "So I gave my kid soap," and then another parent might go, "Well, I use hot sauce for my kid." Then my mother would go, "Well, I used extra Epicac," and everybody'd be like, "What is wrong with you?" But as a child, I thought that giving your child extra medication, what? My mother and father say it's okay to give your child extra medication. They think it's all right. Well, what's the problem here? But now as an adult, I realize, man, was my mother a crazy fucker. Oh my God, she's gonna get me killed. Oh, yep, this is yeah. I'm probably not gonna get to live my full life now. Oh man, yep, that's what the doctors say. And yep. Now I need to find a professional doctor to work just with me, and I need them to ignore all the bullshit. That's the hardest part. When I talk to them and I don't give them my name, everything goes great. But as soon as they listen to my father or mother, as soon as they get that stuff, I start getting hurt, killed. I don't get treatment, and everything goes all over the place thanks to them. So that makes things very difficult.